guest with me. Her name is Gloria Thomas, and Gloria is a licensed clinical social worker, also known as a LCSW. She's very knowledgeable, very helpful. She has a master's degree. So when I thought about this topic that I wanted to share with you all, I thought about Gloria. Today, our topic is based around social welfare, but the main topic is racism, discrimination, and prejudice. So I'd like to say hello, Gloria, and welcome to the show. And how are you today?
Hello, I'm doing great. I'm doing great considering, that there's so much going on. Today is a good day. Today is a good day.
Start with our first topic of discussion, racism. And I'll go over the description that I have, and then we can discuss it, and you can enlighten us. Racism is when people think that one color or race is better than another, and they treat or mistreat people based on that belief. Gloria, why don't you tell me, what are some of the things that trigger racism? What are some of the things that will make people react towards feeling that they're better than another group of people?
Sure. Well, first, Pacola, I want to say thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate that you, that you think of me in such a beautiful way. And I feel the same way about you. So I'm glad to be on your first show with you. We're making our own history right now.
Right.
So I just want to say thank you. So the best way, and I believe the easiest way, and maybe the clearest way to talk about racism in a way that it's easy to see and understand is to look at the history of the United States of America.
Thank you.
If you look at the history of this country, first, that the indigenous people who were here were literally murdered off, right?
Yes.
European people, so people with white skin from Europe, ventured out to different parts of the world and decided that they took it upon themselves to make a decision that what they saw, they would take. So they were called explorers. I've heard people refer to them as pirates, but because pirates, that's what pirates do. They go out and they take whatever they get back home. Well, when I was in school, they were called explorers, and I don't know what they're called now. I haven't been in school, in elementary school anyway, for a long time. But in Europe, the Queen, I think it was Queen Elizabeth, sent Christopher Columbus out. We know this history. Sent Christopher Columbus out to see what he could find in the world, right? To just see what he found. He landed here at one point and he saw this land, right?
Right.
He saw the people who were here. There were human beings, the indigenous people of this land. We have learned to call them Native Americans, indigenous people, were here, right?
Yes.
So they were human beings,
right?
Okay? They are human beings. But this gentleman and other gentlemen like him, when they went out exploring or looking, they landed in this place, they saw this land, they made a decision in their mind that this land should not belong to the people that were here, it should belong to them.
Wow.
Now, these people were different in color, more like my skin color, your skin color. They were darker than them. And they had a way of operating with the planet, the universe, and the land as one, right?
Yes.
There was no, like you didn't own land. Land was given by the creator so you could enjoy it. You could fish and you could hunt to nurture yourself, and you could, but it was free. So the climate was beautiful here. The land was plentiful. Things grew easy. So in the mind of the European, this land, and because these people, the Europeans were thinking that these people were childlike, right? Because they didn't see the land as something they should grab, take, and keep to themselves. Well, that was some racially motivated thinking, right? The people who lived here just were different kinds of people.
Oh, okay. So I see what you're saying. You're saying that he didn't feel, or they didn't feel that the people that lived here deserved it. They felt that they were better than them, so they were just going to come and take it.
Just take it, right? Okay. Now, they weren't, and they didn't just take it. There was at one point, Christopher Columbus sent a letter back to Queen Elizabeth telling her that he noticed that when their men impregnated the Native American women, the indigenous women, the children came out more brown skinned than white skinned. So that set up a thought that, okay, if we continue to mate with people who are darker than us, the darker skinned people will wipe us out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was calculated.
Exactly. Exactly. So that thinking, okay, there had to be a process to take over the land because they didn't need it, right? They were just living on it.
Right.
So there was a process to take over the land, but there was also a process to get rid of the people to make taking over the land easier. Well, if European people felt like Native American people were equal, that wouldn't have been their mindset.
Right.
So,
right.
And believing that they could be wiped out fostered this big takeover. Very, very murderous takeover, right? Native American people were literally murdered off. Like there were graves, big graves dug and just human beings poured in them and dirt thrown over them. And of the small numbers that were left after this hostile takeover, they were, and we all heard in history, the Trail of Tears, they were marched from various parts of North America to Oklahoma, to this one area. So the few in numbers that were left, you can imagine thousands died off on the way to Oklahoma. So with that process, there was also, they tried to enslave Native American people and just have them work the land, right? Grow but Native American people knew the land, so they could run and hide in ways that, and we're coming to our next horrific act of racism.
Oh, see, now I didn't know that they enslaved them, because I did a DNA test. So I have Native American in my heritage. I didn't know that they enslaved the Native Americans.
There was an attempt. But Native Americans knew the land. So they took off to get away from them. And so it wasn't, and they just didn't hold up under that, right?
Yeah.
So there then triggered the ideas to, well, let's just get rid of them, right? Unfortunately, however, in that process, eventually there were people left and they were marched to Oklahoma on that Trail of Tears. Well, that was one very racist, huge racist act that began with people from Europe on this land. I often call it stolen land.
Yes, and I believe we all do.
Yeah. So now, but with the Native Americans having, they just weren't, it wasn't an easy process to enslave them and have them work the land. And
Uh-huh.
that's where African human beings come in. So, so there's this big takeover, theft of this land, but there's, the Europeans who came, they weren't going to work. They were just going to steal the
It's
land.
going to take it.
Exactly. They
Because,
weren't shipping people from Europe to work the land, right?
right,
They were
right.
sending ships loads of another very racist act.
Yes.
However, there was travel
Uh-huh.
and travel eventually to Africa. Well, African human beings were and still are built in a way that was uh, superior to the build of the European body, right? If you
Yes,
look at the
yes,
African body, the
yes,
body is just, I mean, the men are chiseled, right?
yes,
The women, we have, you know, we're the mothers of earth, and we're
yes.
built for bearing children of the earth.
I
Well,
believe it's in our DNA, that strength
yes, and
is
that
in our
that we
DNA.
just so we were born in this land of Africa where everything is. This is like when you really read for all the Bible scholars, the description of the Garden of Eden is Africa. There is
Okay, okay.
nothing that the planet, the continent of Africa is lacking. When the Europeans got to Africa, and because Africans had, like the Native Americans, had their own ways of doing things, had their own customs, had their own everything, languages. Now, an African as a nation or as a continent is, there's like so many, I forgot how many languages alone are home on the continent of Africa.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many different groups, nations of people are on the continent of Africa. So many nations on this one continent. So, and let me just say, in terms of Europeans,
Uh-huh.
so Europeans were born in a country and in countries that they had 3 months out of the year to navigate, get food, and go back into the caves.
They had now how long? Say it again.
3 months.
3 months.
3 months of viable weather. Now, we're talking thousands of years ago, right?
Uh-huh. So they'd
But
hibernate like bears.
so they came out for 3 months. They gathered all the food and everything they could to go back into the caves. And so that idea of grab everything you see and take home as quick
Oh,
as you can comes from that lifestyle, having to live that way.
oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, and I like to say that because I want people to think in a global view when they talk about African people. And so I need to think in a global view when I talk about people of European descent. And
Yes.
so I want to be kinder than people have been to me. And my prayer is that I can make a difference in that way.
Yes.
Okay, I don't want to sound like I'm saying, oh, Europeans were just greedy. They were, and they just took everything they saw. But they were not born on a continent that had everything available 24/7.
Okay, so you're saying because they didn't have that, and partly also because it was their nature to feel superior, or they wouldn't have done it. They felt it was okay.
Well, their thought of superiority came from their need to grab and take.
Wow.
And they were looking at people that didn't grab and take.
Oh, okay. So
so
they had a free for all. They figured, oh well, it's there. We're just gonna take it.
They viewed, because they believed in seeing and taking, and they
Uh-huh.
saw that other people didn't believe in
Oh,
seeing and taking. They told themselves that was a superior view of the world.
okay. Okay.
That
And
was a,
then,
that was
I can have a little empathy for them based on what you said from the viewpoint that this was all that they knew.
exactly, exactly. So in travels throughout the world, right?
Uh-huh.
Europeans landed in Africa, and there they were in the Garden of Eden, where there was everything and people who had everything, right?
Uh-huh.
Because Africans um, are a generous community people in their nature, right? And have generous hearts. There was a system of servitude in Africa going on when Europeans got there, right?
Okay.
However,
Because
how,
that was their culture.
yeah, that's their culture.
Oh, okay.
However, the the servitude slash enslavement of African human beings that was based on race and greed and color too
Uh-huh.
was not the system that the Europeans eventually created. The Europeans created a system of servitude that meant that they would take African human beings, capture them. Well, initially there was an agreement, like African chiefs were allowing African people to leave on ships, right?
Because they were selling them, right? They
Well,
they,
they
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 put price on them.
they put a price on them, but again, they were not aware. They were thinking from their system of servitude, which is, yes, you go and you work for somebody for a certain amount of time and then you're free. You
Okay,
don't
so they
work
knew they
for
were going to be slaves. Do you think that they knew when they sold them that they were
No,
selling
they
them
did
into
not know.
slavery?
They did not know that the enslavement that they're and now remember too, Africa has a whole bunch of nations. So people who were captured, well, people were offered from the interior to go. Now, the interior people are not the same as the West Coast people or the East Coast people or the South or the North, right?
Oh,
There's
right.
very intricate systems of
Yes.
living, right?
Yes.
So, but even with that, the idea of servitude is what the African chiefs had in mind. And none of them were leaving Africa on those ships to
Going with them.
for
Right.
themselves, right? And
Right.
nobody who left came back, right?
Right. So they knew.
Yeah, so they didn't
We can
know.
say, okay, so I don't know. I don't see how they couldn't know though, Gloria.
But think about it.
Because
Think
like you
about
said,
it.
they didn't come back and they didn't want to go.
Well, yeah, no, kings and queens don't step down and do the manual labor in no systems,
Well,
right?
that's true because they were
Yeah, so
probably subservient in their own country also.
exactly. So they were offered in servitude, and and remember, they're not speaking English, and the Europeans aren't speaking in those languages that the
Oh,
African human beings were speaking.
okay.
So
Right.
this just, you know, maybe it was naive,
Yeah,
right?
and a
But
large lack of
remember,
communication.
exactly. But remember now, this is a country, this is a continent where the only time people are really against each other is when there is a lack of resources. So when there's a lack of resource, right? One tribe will go to war with another tribe. Well, check this out. The men of the tribe that are running low on resources will take the women and children to another tribe and tell them, we're getting ready to go to war. Whoever comes back for the women and children, give them to them. Now, the two nations go to war, the two tribes go to war. Whoever wins the war
Uh-huh.
becomes a part whoever's left over becomes a part of the winning tribe.
Right. I remember
They're no,
that.
they're,
They would
they're
take
not
their people
enemies.
and their possessions.
So they're all one now, right?
Right. Okay. Okay. I get that. They're all
Yeah,
one now.
yeah.
Okay.
So these systems of take and grab and murder off for the sake of murder off don't live in Africa.
Uh-huh.
They go to wars based on resources. When a resource is low, they fight whoever's left, whoever wins. And those men that were in the war, the men that were left over become a part of the winning tribe. The women and the children all become the winning tribe. And they receive all the, they're included in the winning tribe without prejudices or differences or poor treatment.
Mm-hmm.
They all become one. So when people think like this,
Uh-huh.
they don't have a system in them that's telling them that the enslavement that Africans were experiencing, who were captured, or even the ones who were given freely, they don't have a process to tell them this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking that everybody operates the way they do.
Right. Okay. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because they think it's normal.
And they have no, well, not, they don't, it's not even a question of whether it's normal or not.
Uh-huh.
They're thinking, okay, they're leaving, but they're working in the same servitude system we have. They're going to work for a while and then they'll be free.
Okay. Because that's what they do?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. There is not a concept that one, they're going to be captured, enslaved, and they're going to live in horror first.
Uh-huh.
In the enslavement dungeons in Africa and Ghana before they get on the ship. They don't know they're going to ride that ship for all those months in the horror that they ride in. And they don't know when they step off the ship, they're going to be in shackles and chains, and they're going to stay in some form of that enslavement till they die. And they don't know that their children are going to be born and go through the same thing. They don't know that for 400 years, that is what is going to happen to the people who leave Africa. They don't know that they're going to be separated from their human experience and their human existence and turned into subhuman standards and have to live by a subhuman standard. There's nothing in their DNA to tell them that. Right? Because they don't do that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they don't do that. So how they don't have nothing to tell them that.
And then because also I guess they haven't visited the other side where their people are going. So
No.
they have no knowledge. They only know what they're told by the others. So did Africa, did the kings and queens and people in Africa also buy human beings? Was that a common practice?
So when you live in nations that have servitude systems, you don't have to, but you're born into it's like this king and queen systems now. If you're born into a family of royalty, you stay in that family till you die. If you're born into a family of servants, you stay in that family till you die. It's not, so we profess, this, what do they call it? I can't believe I can't think of this word, but like you're free to become whatever you want. You're free to be whoever you want, right? Yeah. Well, in nations that have those different kinds of systems, you are born, wherever you're born into, that's where you stay till you die.
Right.
It's not like free capitalism where you can,
is that capitalism or is it democracy?
Well, democracy is a more of a political stance.
Okay.
But those systems that you're born into, and that's still true for most of the world, right?
Right.
America is a place that you can, so I too, my great grandmother was purchased in Virginia and brought to Louisiana, where all her 6 children were fathered by the man who purchased her.
Wow.
And though her and those children lived on that plantation until 1865. After 1865, her children left. And when that man died, her one of her sons and a brother or somebody went back and got her and took her to Opelousas, Branch, Louisiana, where she lived until she died. 1865 was when the enslavement process was so-called ended. But think about it. Sharecropping, which was where you worked on land, you farmed that land, because remember, we're chiseled, we're built, we're knowledgeable where land is concerned. We're blessed and gifted in that area.
Right.
We work those lands and we pay to harvest our crops. We do all that work. And even in sharecropping, we pay. And what we are left with is not really enough to sustain us. It's enough to keep us poor and destitute.